sat on this side.
Good morning. My name's Eddie Chen. I'm one of your board members here at Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. It's my pleasure to welcome you on this beautiful Easter morning. You're welcome here, whoever you are, wherever you're from, and wherever you're on your journey. If you'd like to learn a little more about our church, you can fill out the visitor information card that's located in the back seat pocket or the pew in front of you and drop it in the collection plate when it goes by. And for those of you that are viewing online, you can access our website at tvuuc.org and go to the menu and select Stay in Touch and fill out the virtual visitor card. Now, regarding COVID, great news again. Per the CDC, Knox County's COVID risk level is still low. I'll take that any day. And currently, there are no COVID-related restrictions in place at our church. For those who might feel a little bit more comfortable, the Lizzie Crozier-French room is designated for remote viewing with masks required for all those ages of 2 and over. You can view our complete COVID policy on the church website. As we move forward together, please remember that we are each other's keeper. If you'd like to learn more about our youth religious education program, you could stop by our education table located in the lobby, and Miriam Davis is out there manning it this morning. She'll answer any questions you may have. Nobody came up with any announcements. Anybody here need to make an announcement? No, we're looking good. Okay. Please join us after the service for a special Easter coffee and conversation in the fellowship hall. Those of you online are welcome to join our Zoom coffee hour. Unfortunately, you won't be able to partake in some of the treats that we have in the fellowship hall. Now, please silence your electronic devices as we enter into worship.
Good morning, I'm Maris Porter, and today's opening words are by Sarah McLaughlin, and they're called The First Hint of Green. As the first hint of green begins to peek through the barren ground, as that little sprig grows into a healthy stem, as that stem grows into a stalk and forms a bud, as that bud slowly opens with each new day to form a yellow daffodil, let us be like that first hint of green, renewed by the warmth of the sun's rays, and ready to emerge with a new energy, ready to face the day. We light this chalice to bring a glimmer of that warmth into our space. Come, let us worship together.
Please rise for the singing of our chalice lighting song. I'd like to review the hand signs in the song, and first is from you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Love is the spirit of this church.
And service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our great covenant. Let us join together in our opening hymn, 61, in the gray hymnal, Lo, the earth awakes again.
Good morning and welcome. It is good to be gathered today here in this room, watching from other spaces in our building or from home. I'm glad to be together. And I have a story today that's adapted from one written by Allison Randall called The Wheat Doll. And it's about a kid who lived on a farm, and she lived kind of far away from other families. She lived there with her parents. And there weren't a lot of other people around, and they didn't have a lot of things other than what they could grow or make themselves. And Mary Ann was the kid's name, and her very favorite thing she had, and really her best friend, was her wheat doll, Betty. She had made Betty from fabric scraps and had stuffed her with wheat, and Betty went with her everywhere she went on her chores around the farm, and today she was out harvesting carrots. Has anybody here ever pulled carrots up from the ground? She had to tug really hard for the ground to let go of them, and she was gathering carrots, and she was wearing a big apron that had lots of pockets that she was putting them in, but then after a little bit she realized she was going to need all of that room. So she took Betty out of her pocket and placed her on a big stump right there where Betty could watch. Betty was really good at watching, and Betty was really good at listening. And there were so many times when Mary Ann talked with Betty about all the things that were going on and all the thoughts that she had in her mind. And today, she kept pulling up those carrots, and before too long, her pockets were all full. And so she gathered them up in her apron, and she headed to the house and down to their root cellar to put them down to store down there. And she was about to come back out and head back outside to gather more when her mother said, Come in quick, come into the house. There's a storm that's coming. Mary Ann had not even noticed the clouds that were gathering. Have any of us ever been somewhere, maybe somewhere like this, where a storm came up suddenly? 1 minute, it seemed clear, if you weren't looking back there, right? And the storm, the clouds come in, and all of a sudden, what's happening? I hear some people say rain, thunder, lightning. And Mary Ann started to say, oh no, I left Betty outside. I need to go get her. But just then, her dad came in and said, you are not going back outside. This is going to be a bad one. And so they sat together in their home in the safest place they had to wait for the storm. What does a storm sound like? Can we make storm noises? There was big wind. Make big wind. And there was thunder. And there were bright flashes of lightning. And what do you think Mary Ann was thinking about the whole time? She was thinking about Betty. Now, outside, what was happening to Betty? She was getting all wet. In fact, early on, the wind picked up. Did we have some big wind not long ago in this area? Think about the wind. The wind blew Betty right off of that big stump. And there's a hill nearby, and she tumbled down the hill and came to rest in a rocky hole at the bottom of the hill. And then the rain began to pound her. But what was inside of Betty? The wheat inside of Betty began to swell as it got really wet. And then, suddenly, what happens sometimes outside when there's a lot of rain on the ground? It gets muddy. And a big wash of mud came loose from the hill and washed down at the bottom and covered Betty right up. She was underneath the gooey, sticky mud. Well, later, after the storm was done, Mary Ann went outside and went to do what? Went to find Betty. The first thing she did was go to the stump. No Betty. She looked all around. She looked in the garden. She looked down the hill. She looked down at the bottom of the hill even, but she could not find Betty anywhere. She kept on looking, but she did not find Betty. And in the weeks and even the months that followed, she felt really lonely. Nobody listened to her like Betty did. Now, as springtime came, one day she was out. What do you do in the springtime when you have a garden? You plant things. What was she pulling up when we started our story? Carrots. She was out planting carrot seeds so that the carrots would grow again in the garden. And she was putting the seeds down and looking around as she always did for Betty, and she saw something that looked a little different than she expected. Down at the bottom of the hill, she saw something kind of green and spiky. And she walked down to the bottom of the hill, and she saw little green shoots growing up but they were in a kind of an unusual shape. She saw a head and some arms and some legs, and she said, "Betty, is that you?" And she felt the wind blow on her, and she thought, Betty must be listening. And all that summer, Betty tended the little patch of wheat as it grew taller, turned golden. She cut it when it was time. She found some new scrap fabric, and she sewed a new body, and was careful when she embroidered eyes and ears on Betty and gave her hair and gave her clothing and filled her with the wheat that she had grown. It was good to have Betty back again. She wasn't quite the same as she was, but she knew that Betty would still be a really good listener. And that is our story for this morning. And today we have a little bit of a different kind of a morning than usual. We are going to stay in our service for our multi-gen service today, but is there anybody here who is thinking that you might want to go and hunt for eggs after the service today? We have an egg hunt after the service for those who would like to hunt. And here's what to do. I want to make sure you know. When the service is done, we're going to walk all the way down to the other end of the building, down the long curved hallway to the doors right in front of you. And we're going to go outside, and I'm going to be there right outside the gates that go into the play area, and we're going to talk about how our hunt works. And then we're going to send everybody in together to start the hunt once we've got everybody down there, okay? So I am excited to do some egg hunting with those who are going to join us for that today at the end of the service. And now we are going to continue with our multi-gen service together with our next song. Thank you.
Let's join together in hymn 266 in the gray hymnal, "Now the Green Blade Riseth." Rise and body or spirit.
Today's reading is by Peggy Clark, and it's titled, "Love Brings Us Back to Life." Easter is a holiday of miracles. It is life from death, joy from sorrow, celebration from mourning. Easter reminds us that all is never lost, that the story continues as long as we are here to tell it. So gather up your worries. We are going to bury them beneath the ground and watch them transform into flowers of hope, pushing through the earth, reminding us on Easter morning that love brings us back to life, calls us from sadness, from grief, from anxiety, into a world renewed and alive and filled with joy once again.
Good morning. My name is David Massey. I'm a member of the spiritual care team. We answer TVUUC's pastoral care line during the day and early evening 7 days a week and respond to phone messages as soon as we hear them. That number, 865-297-3155, is in your order of service and in the weekly newsletter. Anyone is welcome to call anytime if you would like to share something on your mind or in your heart. These calls are confidential, even within the spiritual care team. This is also the number to call if you wish to have a joy or concern shared with the congregation on Sunday morning or in the newsletter. After the service today, please stop by the caring table in the Greg McKendry Fellowship Hall to add your name to messages of support that will be mailed to those in need of your good wishes. Doris Gove and Sharon Fields are volunteering at that table today. I'm just going to interrupt my normal remarks here to say that this is wonderful to see so many people here today, and I'm going to ask if you are visiting, having been in this church in the past, or if you're visiting for the first time today, would you please stand? If you're visiting, don't be shy. If you're visiting, please stand. Thank you very much. You're welcome. 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 On this gorgeous spring morning, we pause to remember those in our city and across the world who are suffering from natural disaster, man-made disaster, economic deprivation, poor health, and injustice. May we renew our efforts here at TVUUC to bring sunshine into their lives, because this is a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we find meaning, a sharing community where our joys are amplified, and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. So let's take a moment to reflect on our joys and sorrows and acknowledge the mutual support of our community. This room is still sparkling with the tears, laughter, and love from yesterday's memorial service for Christopher Joseph Tofi Touchton, flamboyant optimist extraordinaire, husband of Mario Clemente, son of Joe Touchton and the late Arlene Touchton, stepson of Mary Touchton, brother of Courtney Touchton Staub, and dear friend to many current and former members of this congregation. May he rest in peace, and may we keep his lively spirit in our hearts. It is with deep sadness that I must inform you that Charlotte Morrison died yesterday morning. This is a surprise to many of us, as she had entered a memory care facility just 2 months ago, but her husband Clarence Morrison said she had declined very rapidly in recent weeks. Our hearts go out to Clarence and to their son Aaron, who was active in the high school class here in the 1990s and who now lives on the West Coast. Yesterday, Kate Benson returned home from several days at Fort Sanders Hospital, where she was diagnosed as having suffered 2 mild strokes. She was exhausted from sleepless hospital nights. I talked to her yesterday evening, but was suffering no discomfort or pain and was just trying not to be too scared. She will wear a heart monitor for 1 month as her doctors seek to understand exactly what's going on, and she expresses confidence in her medical team. At the moment, she needs no particular help, and in fact, may be able to start driving again in another week. Her 3 children, Sean, Josh, and Beth, are in close touch. Kate wanted to be back in this room this spring. Her back problems prevented that. She hopes to join us in person again soon. A reminder that there is a memorial service next Saturday, April 15th at 1 p.m. for Ray Holton. Ray died on February 19th. He was a member of this church, was the head of the UTK Botany Department for many years. He died at the age of 93. Also, just a reminder to everyone that several members of this congregation are homebound or living in a care facility. These include Lynn Mullins at Commonwealth Senior Living and Corinne Smith at Westmoreland Health and Rehab. Commonwealth Senior Living is in Oak Ridge, Westmoreland Health and Rehab on Lionsview Pike. Both Lynn and Corinne relish our cards and visits. Those of you who, like me, are fighting glaucoma will share the joy in this news. Since starting glaucoma eye drops, Gordon Gibson has never had a pressure reading in the single digits, and in recent months it's been over 20. But last Tuesday, a surgeon installed a stent in his eye, and the pressure has dropped to 8. May all of us old fogies be so fortunate. For all these joys and concerns that are spoken, as well as those that are unknown and unspoken, we send our love and light out into the world.
This morning's meditation is adapted from words by Laura Wilkerson Spencer. I invite you now to settle yourself, relax your body, relax your mind. Let the thoughts and worries in your mind melt away. Feel your breathing. Relax your body. Now imagine you are very small. You are in a safe place. A hard shell around you protects you. You are inside an egg. It is warm. It is safe. All your needs are taken care of. Rest here in your egg. What does it feel like inside of your egg? This is the time for new beginnings, new life. All around us, under the ground, new life is forming. Grass, flowers, insects are all preparing to spring forth. There's new life in the animal world, too. The promises and excitement of the season are in the air. Safe within your egg, you, too, are preparing to spring forth. But first, you are resting. Gathering energy you will need soon. Feel yourself inside of your egg. You are getting bigger. You feel the shell around you, and you are gathering your energy. And I invite you to spend a few moments thinking about your plans for the coming time. Is there a project coming your way? Is there something new in your life on its way? Is there something you want to try out sometime soon or do for the first time? While you rest, safe inside your egg, I invite you to decide on one or two things you can do to help your dream or your plan take shape. So this time is for planning and resting and gathering energy. But now, the time has come. Your egg is feeling tight and cramped. Can anybody show me what it looks like, feeling tight and cramped inside your egg? You are rested and ready to greet the world. So I invite you to stretch your arms and legs as you emerge from your shell. Look around you at this glorious and beautiful world we live in, and remind yourself of what you plan to do, the plans that came up for you. See in your mind's eye yourself doing those things. Now, many of us, as we entered this morning, received an egg shape. And we'd like to invite everybody to have an egg shape. So if you do not have an egg shape, if you didn't manage to get one, if you would raise your hand. Oh, and I suspect I have some helpers, some people who would like to be helpers to share some egg shapes. So I have some extra egg shapes. Who would like to be a helper? Come on up and help, yeah. Their hand up high. Oh, would you see if we can get them an egg? And I think we've got some more if we need them in the back here. There are some folks over here who need an egg. All right, thank you, Theo. Oh, Theo, I see a couple people right over that way who need some. And I see a couple people over on this side. You need a few more? I think there might be more. Let's see. We had some baskets on the way in with eggs. We have a couple people who still need eggs. Who's still got some eggs to share? We've got some folks who need some eggs over here. Other people need eggs. Let's see, are the baskets that we had at the beginning, are they empty? Is there a basket over there? We had 200 eggs this morning. All right. Okay. I guess I needed to make 300 instead of 200. All right, so I hope most folks have an egg, and if not, I invite you to find maybe your order of service or another piece of paper. If you are watching from home or another space, I invite you to find something you can write or draw on. And so now in a moment, we're going to enter into a time of silent reflection. And I want to invite you to draw or write or draw a picture of, or ask someone sitting near you to help you write something that you plan to do to bring new life for yourself. And as we know, silence is never really silent, and we welcome all the noises of life within and among us this morning. And we're going to take some time for reflection, and I think we have discovered our extra eggs. So if you are still waiting for an egg, if you raise your hand, we will see if we can bring it around as well. Thank you. So we will take some time for reflection now.
You write on your egg something that will bring new life, something you can choose to do that'll bring new life into your life.
If you have finished writing or drawing, hold in your mind what you put down on your egg. What is it you are hoping for this spring to bring new life to yourself? And I invite you, if you are here today, to take your egg home with you and put it somewhere where you're going to see it really often. So it reminds you of your own dreams and plans for new life for yourself this year. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Claudia Presley. I'm the Director of Finance and Operations here at TVUUC. This is the part of the service where we get to be generous. Today is a designated offering Sunday. What that means is that 100% of any contribution that you make here in the building or online today goes to our designated offering organization, which is Justice Knox. Reverend Chris Buice is going to come in just a minute and speak to you all about what that organization does and how they do it. My job right now is to tell you how to give. Really simple. Offering baskets are going to be passed here in the sanctuary. You can also give at the giving kiosk out in the lobby. If you are watching online, text giving is probably the easiest way to give. The number is 73256. Type in TVUUC and the amount you would like to give, or you can simply go to our website and give through there. Thank you so much for joining us.
I invite you to grab a hymnal for a ritual. If you've ever been to a Justice Knox meeting, you know there's a moment where someone shouts out, "Justice," and everyone else yells, "Knox." So, Justice Knox, Justice Knox, Justice Knox. Justice Knox is an organization dedicated to reviving grassroots democracy, to stop having folks think about democracy as a consumer product, but something that we make together. Democracy isn't meant to be top down, but come from the grassroots, and has been very successful in organizing around many issues, even when it seemed like there was little hope. It seemed like very little hope that a plan to put together to add additional mental health services in our county would be successful. We were getting the no from county leadership over and over again, and then the federal government passed a bill that released money, and suddenly that plan was able to be implemented. When the Justice Knox agreed to focus on community violence, there was a lot of discouragement. How do you get your mind and your policies around addressing that? But we've had a lot of success bringing in an outside consultant to help Knox County learn new ways to reduce violence in our community. And this year we are focusing on systemic change for affordable housing and bringing an end to homelessness in our community. Justice Knox is dedicated to being a voice for the voiceless, to speaking out for those who can't speak for themselves. I invite you to give generously to Justice Knox. Justice Knox. Justice Knox.
My soul
There's a Jewish tradition when two friends reunite who haven't seen each other for a long time. As the two approach each other, one may say, "Blessed is the one who resurrects the dead." Being apart from those we love is a kind of death, and being reunited again is new life. In that sense, I have a picture that I keep in my church office of my friends from high school days back in the day. It was taken in one of those old-timey photo shops that you see in Gatlinburg and some other places where you're able to dress up. And one of my friends is dressed up like a cowboy sheriff, and another is dressed up like a riverboat gambler with a cane, and another looks like an intrepid reporter. And then two friends are looking at each other suspiciously because they're on opposing sides in the American Civil War. And in the middle, there is a saloon girl with a feather boa and a frilly dress with a shot glass of bourbon in her hand and a cigar in her mouth. And most people who come into my office and look at the picture don't realize that that saloon girl is now the minister of the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. Obviously, my coming of age in the 80s was in an era before very sensitive state legislators tried to ban drag. Indeed, the homecoming queen at our high school was a boy, and he wore his tiara with a certain quiet dignity. In other words, gender fluidity is nothing new. And I have very fond memories of my high school years. Periodically, I get together with these friends, and we reunite, and we have such a great time, lots of laughter, lots of memories. And that's why I keep this picture in my office, to help me feel young again. And it helps me have a deeper appreciation of that Jewish blessing. Blessed is the one who resurrects the dead. This time last year, I drove up to Kentucky to do a memorial service for Krista Dalton's mother, Joella. And along my way, driving through those rural Kentucky roads, I kept seeing Jesus carrying the cross on the side of the road. And I thought I might be hallucinating, but it turns out in rural Kentucky there is a tradition of reenacting Jesus's road to Calvary. And this happens in many different communities, and since I was driving through more than one small town, I got to see more than one Jesus. It was a slightly surreal experience. On Easter Sunday, we remember how Jesus was arrested for turning over tables in a temple. In other words, he lacked decorum. And on Easter, we hear the story of the death and resurrection of Jesus, but not every resurrection makes the headlines, and not every resurrection gets its way into the scriptures. All around us, there are resurrections in our everyday lives. During the burial for Joella, Krista's mom, we were standing on a very steep Appalachian hillside at what felt like was a 45-degree angle. And I couldn't help but notice the wildflowers blooming and the trees budding all around us. Standing by that grave on a spring day, I felt the energy of both death and resurrection. Krista asked me to do that service because she couldn't think of anybody else who could hold together all the diverse religious positions that might be coming to that service. And indeed, at that burial, after many of the church-going people left, there was a Native American smudging ritual for those who remain. Many different traditions of renewal this time of year. The ancient Hindu scriptures, the Upanishads, describe the cycle of life and death this way. Consider how it has been for those who have gone before and how it will be for those that now live. Like corn, we ripen and fall to the ground. Like corn, we rise again in our season. There is a rabbinic tradition that says every night when we lie down to go to bed, it is a kind of death. And every morning when we rise again, it's a kind of resurrection. So that every 24-hour period is a cycle of life and death and resurrection. In that spirit, the womanist theologian Tricia Hersey has asked us to think about our rest as a sacred activity and even resistance, working for social change. In her book, Rest is Resistance, a manifesto, she argues that the worth and dignity of every human being is not based on how much punishing labor we can withstand. We need to resist the cult of busyness and hyperproductivity, the tyranny of an economy that treats everyone like machines that should produce no matter what, keep going no matter what the cost to our personal health and mental well-being and the state of society as a whole. She wrote, "When we finally wake up to the truth of what a machine-level pace of labor has done to our physical bodies, our self-esteem, and our spirits, the unraveling of the system begins. Resting our bodies and minds is a form of reverence. When we honor our bodies via rest, we are connecting to the deepest parts of ourselves. We are freedom-making." So sometime after this church service and any other plans you have, the Easter egg hunt or any other plans, if you find time to take a nap, and that's one of the things this theologian talks about, nap ministry. If you find a time to take a nap, know that resting our bodies can lead to a resurrection of the spirit. Speaking of bodies, if you've ever toured many medieval cathedrals, then you may be familiar with a certain genre of statues that, for a lack of a better name, I will call the genre of statues to decapitated saints. I'm bringing a picture because I didn't think everyone would believe me that this is a genre of statues. I knew there would be doubters, O ye of little faith. But if you look at this picture, or if you've been to a cathedral, you know some of the saints will actually be holding their head in their hand. You know, they've lost their head, but now they're carrying it around in their hand. And the message that goes with the stories of these saints is you can kill the messenger, but you can't kill the message. In many of the stories, the saint loses his or her head, but then picks up the head, and the head just keeps preaching. You can kill the talker, but you can't stop him from talking. The reason I mention these ancient medieval saints is because the government of our state is trying to keep people from talking. to keep people from talking about what we need to do to keep our children safe in their schools, to keep people from talking about the basic human rights that people deserve in the face of homophobia and transphobia, to keep people from talking about critical race theory or any other honest account of our nation's history, to keep people from talking about women's rights and reproductive freedom, to keep people from talking about a living wage, access to health care, or affordable housing. The government of the state is trying to keep people from talking by voter suppression, gerrymandering districts, removing people from committee assignments, and expelling elected leaders. But here's my prediction. I predict people are going to keep on talking. We had a busload of people leave from this parking lot this week to go up to the legislature to keep on talking. In the words of the old civil rights spiritual, we're going to keep on walking, keep on talking, marching into freedom land. The government of El Salvador in the late 20th century tried to keep the Archbishop of that country, Oscar Romero, from speaking out about his concerns for the poor and the oppressed in his lifetime during the Civil War in that country, but he would not remain silent. Romero received death threats and other forms of intimidation, but he would not stop talking. He once told a reporter, "Frequently I have been threatened by death. I should tell you that as a Christian, I do not believe in death without resurrection. If they kill me, I will be resurrected in the Salvadoran people." And after his tragic assassination, while he was preparing to serve communion in a small chapel, the nation rose up. After his death, people started marching for peace, and on the day when that nation was finally able to negotiate a peace agreement among the warring parties, there was a gathering of hundreds and thousands of people before his cathedral, and they held up a sign that read, "Oscar Romero, you have risen in your people." 2 days ago, a group of us took a pilgrimage to Mount Zion Baptist Church for the Good Friday service. Now, if you go to the Vatican in Rome and you look at the artwork on display there, you will get the impression that God is white and that Jesus is white and that all the saints are white, that Mary is white. But if you take a pilgrimage to the Mount Zion Baptist Church in Knoxville, Tennessee, and you look at the artwork there, you will get the feeling that God is black and that Mary is black and that Jesus is black and all the saints are black. And when you look at that picture of Jesus on the cross, it's hard not to think about the chains of the middle passage, or the pain of the auction block, or the shame of the whipping post, or the horror of the lynching tree. And remember the words of Jesus from Scripture, "What you do to the least of these, you do also unto me." Every time someone is oppressed, Christ is crucified all over again. On Tuesday, April 4th, I was sitting next to the Reverend Harold Middlebrook at a rehearsal for the Good Friday service, and he reminded me, just to me at first, that it was the 55th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King in Memphis. This date is personally traumatic for Reverend Middlebrook because he was in Memphis on that day and he was working with Dr. King on the sanitation workers strike at that time. And he told me, he said, "I don't usually do anything on April 4th. I usually stay home. I usually meditate. I usually pray. I just usually stay silent and be contemplative." But on that day, he came out to help us prepare for the Good Friday service and the Stations of the Cross. And during that rehearsal, I had the great view of watching him write a letter to the Tennessee legislature demanding that our state do something about the epidemic of gun violence in our country and stop expelling state representatives for engaging in peaceful protest toward that goal. After he wrote that letter, he invited us all to sign it, which we did, and it went to Nashville. It did not change the vote there, but my understanding is the local leaders in Nashville and Memphis are planning to send back the representatives who have been expelled, so the legislature needs to get ready for the second coming. Dr. King died in 1968, but many others are still walking, still talking, still marching, a tragic death, and yet also the power of resurrection. Yesterday, we held a memorial service here in this room for Christopher Tophy Touchton. And I've known Tophy since he was in the middle school, and I was his Sunday school teacher, and I watched him grow up, becoming a teenager, becoming a young adult, becoming a young man. Cancer took him too young. So yesterday, we gathered as a time to mourn his death, but it was also of a reunion of old friends. It was also a reunion of old friends, and it was good to see so many of the kids who grew up in the church, many of whom now have kids of their own. And on that very sad and painful day yesterday, there was also joy. The joy that comes from the reunion of friends. There was both death and new life. And that's my hope for any time you come to the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. I see here today people who often come visit us online, who have come here in person on Sunday morning. No doubt there are some folks watching us online who often come in person, but whenever you come and however you come, if you come feeling a mountain of despair, I hope you leave our services feeling at least a stone of hope. If you come feeling discouraged, I hope you leave feeling emboldened and empowered. And if you come to mourn a loss, I hope you are able to look around you and see the reunion of friends that we have each Sunday morning. I hope whenever you come feeling like death, you also feel resurrection. So may it be. I invite you to join together in our closing hymn, the number of which you will find in your order of service. Hymn 269 in the gray hymnal. Prophetic Church, the world awaits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love. Proclaim the truth that makes us free. To the virtual coffee hour. As our last act of worship, I invite you to turn and greet your neighbor.